With like your mouth closed, and nobody knows.
I pressed the record button, the red one.
Just a little bit. For a minute.
You got an extra pen I can borrow?
Key press are both of them.
I'd like to call this meeting to order of the
Where's my
Big Plains Water and Sewer Special Service District. If you please stand, we'll pledge allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Ross Gregerson, President.
Gerald Merritt present.
Marty Elizabeth present.
Any Bass present.
And Neil Duncan is excused. Also, Rod Mills is out of town and excused, and Dale Harris is out of town and he's also asked to be excused. I'll go to items of discussion and action, and we are pleased to have Michelle Kenny volunteer to be our recorder. We need an official one, and so I would motion that we appoint Michelle Kenny as recorder for the Big Plains Water and Sewer Special Service District. Do I have a second?
I second.
Vote?
Aye.
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 And Michelle, we need to swear you in. If we could do that at this point.
Okay.
And we've asked Tanya McGinnis to do that for us.
Okay, Michelle, repeat after me with your right hand raised, please. I, Michelle Kinney, having been appointed to the office of clerk, is it clerk or recorder?
Recorder, I think.
Clerk recorder.
Clerk recorder. right?
Clerk/recorder.
Clerk/recorder.
Do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear.
that I will support,
That I will support.
obey,
Obey.
and defend the Constitution
And defend the Constitution.
of the United States
Of the United States.
and the Constitution
And the Constitution.
of the state of Utah,
Of the state of Utah.
and that I will discharge
And that I will discharge.
the duties of my office
The duties of my office.
with fidelity.
With fidelity. Thanks, Tony.
Well, congratulations. You get a title raise. The money will be coming later.
I know how that works. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Are you okay to go on, or do I wait until?
You can go on.
Okay. Another matter of business, make motion that Ross Gregerson be appointed as the chair pro tem in my absence through the summer from time to time. I have a second on that.
Can I second it?
No, you can't.
I can't.
I'll second it.
Vote?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm a no.
I abstain.
I don't know if it'd be appropriate.
I just thought it'd be more appropriate to have a discussion on it too before the vote, and that's why I voted no. I just have I think Ross Gregerson, he knows everything there is to know, and he's an awesome volunteer. I've just been frustrated personally because of my lack of being able to get him in to even do something simple as go over finances with him. I've made several phone calls, he's made no attempt to. I know he's been busy with other things as well, but you know, after 3 months, it kind of, there's a different message that's being sent there that he does not apparently have the time. So how would he be a chair for on the committee if he doesn't have time to even understand the finances of it? And that's where I have a problem with it. So
My thinking on the issue was that last summer, Dale and Ross and I spent a good share of the summer doing well 59. He's worked on drilling the well, re-drilling the well on Apple Valley 1. He's been in the drilling business and water business. Later on in the agenda, and we can cover a bit of it now, is that Denny has mentioned that we need
A backup, yeah.
a backup water master. Ross has filled in on that several times. I have, but the official one is
But you're talking about putting someone in charge that does not understand the finances. They have not bothered to come in and do that. That's where I have the problem. And that's where the rubber meets the road when it comes time to being chair, in my opinion, is understanding at least where you're at.
well, I can see both points there. I think that just because I'm not gonna be here on some meeting nights possibly, I'm not going a great distance, you're gonna be gone for a long period of time, so I come in and talk to Ben on a regular basis and try to keep up to speed on what's going on, and we've worked over the budget 2 or 3 times before this meeting. So I think I would still be in a position to handle that. What I'm talking about is if I'm out of town and Dale's out of town and there has to be a decision made as to what to do with the well or whatever, we want somebody that would be here to say, you know, do this, do that.
All right. All right. I'll change my vote to a yay.
We appreciate that, Mayor. Denny, do you vote? You abstained, right?
I did.
Okay,
Can
so
we
we have,
just, can we, because we already did the motion, took the vote, can we do a new motion and a new vote, please?
okay, I make the motion that we sustain Ross Gregerson as the chair pro tem.
I'll second that.
A vote?
Aye.
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 Abstain.
Okay. Motion passes. Thank you again on that. Not into the assistant water master, right?
Sorry, can I just make one more? Usually if you abstain for any reason other than not being present, that you will give just a reason why.
Give a reason why?
Yeah, do you have a reason?
Well, the reason is I just disagree with some of the things that was brought up earlier, and I kind of agree with what the mayor brought up. He needs to be more of a chairman, not just a worker out there.
Okay, so it sounds more like a nay than an abstain. Are we?
Yeah, but still, I'd like to talk to him and see what his thoughts are and stuff, that's why I'm saying. Okay.
Okay. Usually an abstain is just for an absence is why you would abstain. Okay, put that.
Okay, we good with what we're doing here?
Yeah.
Okay, Kevin Sayer has worked with Dale for a long time and goes back. One question I had that we could discuss on that issue is that, and I don't really know where to go with it, and that's get some input here. So we have Kevin, I talked to I can't remember who, whether it was Sean or what, about contract labor. And he wasn't really didn't really encourage that approach. But we have Kevin working for the service district from time to time, and we need to address insurance. I don't think, money, I think he's happy to do it. He's told me he's happy to do it as a volunteer. He said, if something blows up, I'm gonna call you and we'll go from there, but.
Well, he's on the town payroll right now. We
So-
still use him from
So-
time to time. He just has limits on how much he can earn.
So, then he is covered too.
Yeah,
Okay.
because he's already a town employee. He
Okay, well,
turns in a pay stub or a time card probably every other week or so, but it depends on what needs to be done, whether or not it's very many hours or a lot of hours, but,
Yeah.
so.
It's kind of a gentleman agreement, town volunteer thing with the service district in that he turns the pumps on and off, and if he notices something out of whack, he'll get a hold of, somebody else. So it's
I
just,
think it's important to have a backup, so.
yeah,
I have no problem with that.
Well, but what are the requirements for an assistant though?
well,
On the. as far as the
basically,
state.
knowing to blow, to, when he fires the wells up, particularly 59 and AB2, to let them run for 5 minutes or so and let them clear up before he puts them online, checks the pressures on the pumps, and then checks the tank levels, and if any of those things are out of whack, he's supposed to get hold of Dale or me. And surely one of us would be around.
But I just wonder, you guys mentioned the wording on that the state was saying, what are they saying? What is there a statute or something saying that the assistant needs to have X number of training, needs to be able to do?
Need to be certified.
You have to be some certification to be an assistant water master.
Yeah,
But we can,
We just
get them
gotta find out what they
certified.
are.
yeah.
Yeah, we haven't moved him up to, actually, he is a caretaker or watchman type of thing, that if something happens, he'll get a hold of somebody else.
Right.
And so,
And for what you want them for, there's probably nothing else we have to do other than hands-on training that Dale gives them, so.
yeah.
So if you want a backup water master, I'm okay to, suggest that we
Well-
train him as such, so we have that backup person anyways. So, but.
But I think.
I'm not sure he's the right guy for that job because, he has that limit on how much he can earn. And, in Dale's absence, then that would be a problem where he can't,
Yeah,
put in that many hours.
we may wanna get the book out and read that one over. He doesn't actually get into the hands-on part of anything going on, it's just that there's something wrong here.
Right, turn the pump on.
Right, yeah, I understand, but what I'm saying is, I think other districts, they do a little swap, like Dale could cover for Virgin or somebody like that, or maybe there's somebody out there that could cover for Dale if we needed a qualified person in that,
Yeah,
I think that's a better approach, not that Kevin can't go turn it on if he has an issue, call you or me or something like that has the knowledge, but to fill that requirement, I think the backup could be somebody that's already a water master somewhere else that could be the backup in an emergency. Yeah, and going to your thing, Mayor, I'm basically through with Kevin. I've had a 3-month project, that's why I've been available, okay? My wife's glad to meet me right now, but I'm basically through with Kevin, so he is available more, because he's done a lot of work for me too.
Okay, well, let's look into this water master trade thing, and we'll talk to Dale about it when he gets back. He'll be back tomorrow,
That's good advice.
and, pursue that on a little more formal basis.
Let's look into interim, see what a water master assistant is, or the backup water master, what is the requirement. Maybe there isn't any deep requirements, and we just say the training from Dale is good enough if Dale signs it off.
Well,
But you have to have some kind of certification requirement to be a water master.
I really don't think so if you don't do the water testing. That is where all of the state gets
I
involved.
mean, that's just something we need to look into then, and find out what the requirements are.
if he's just turning the pump on and off,
Yeah.
I don't think it's a big deal.
Maybe just call him, you don't call him an assistant water master, you call him something else.
Yeah, I think we're headed in the right direction if we change the title and get somebody in place if something does go south, that we have a water master that's, could help us. But frankly, the only things that could go wrong are mechanical, and we can fix those.
If that happens, I think Ross had a good idea, we could contact Burton or somebody else and say, hey, in case of emergency, could you back us up? And at least you have them on the list and stuff, and then if something happens, you can give them a call.
Well, because, Virgins, they need a backup too, and maybe that little type of exchange would work for everybody.
Yeah. Well, let's look into that and see if we can
Give it to them.
get a little deeper into
Debbie just
that.
found something online regarding
Your
the
closest qualifications
definition.
for an assistant water master.
Here, I'll let the chairman read it.
Somebody's trying to call you.
Probably another
Just
scam.
hit ignore.
It's the state.
It just says that they measured stream flows, monitor water levels, the water use rates, basically what Kevin's doing right now. And that would be, assistant water master.
But there could be some amount of training that we could provide that, if that's necessary. Some of that's just online training.
Yeah.
He spends 2 or 4 hours,
Thank you.
getting certified or something, so.
Okay, well, we'll look into that a little deeper and, see if we can formalize that a little more than we have. Move on to item number 4 and let, Mr. Billingsley, if he would.
Yeah, I'd be happy to give
on the fame and glory
kind of
there.
a brief overview of what we're looking at for a budget for next year. So I've been working with the chairman for the last few weeks on the budget for the water district. Expenditures, we pretty much, we used just the last few years of trends. We think that was a good approach to expenditures. I had a question from Mr. Bass about the reduction in expenditures from last year to this year. And there's some budget categories that we are anticipating being a little bit less moving into next year. So the 2 key categories being admin salaries and benefits. That constitutes pretty much the majority of the reduction in expenditures. The one thing that I did want to touch on was the requirements for the fund deficit balance. So we have a requirement that we have to allocate 5% of the last closed fiscal year's revenues to make up the negative fund balance, and this amounts to about $8,500. And based on the projections, so our revenue projections. I think our operating revenue projections are pretty. We have them nailed in pretty tight. So water sales are in line with where we've been the last couple of years. The big unknown, and this isn't a new concept to anybody, but the big unknown with the water district is what are we going to get for impact fees, connection fees, and the way that I emailed out a document for the income projections, and this is something that Harold worked pretty hard on, and I just plugged the numbers in. But with those revenue projections that we have plugged into the budget right now, we do have a compliant budget, which was my big concern, was getting to the point where the budget was compliant, so we had enough money to make up that 5% negative fund balance requirement. And this budget, if reality came in exactly as budgeted, would result in a $37,000 net increase to the equity account. So, if anybody has any questions regarding any of the revenue or expenditure categories, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you. Mr. Bass.
Yeah, thank you. And,
I got one question on impact fees. 2019, we're saying that we're gonna collect 108,000, but yet we're forecasting in 2020, 234. What do we base that on?
We are. So the big one that we have a pretty good gauge on is the second half of the gooseberry impact fee. So that's $90,000. And you know, when you look at that in isolation, from 108,000, you add 90,000 to that, and you're almost to the point where that almost makes up the difference. And we have a build up there for impact fees. Besides the gooseberry development, the only other impact fees that we budgeted for are residential builds. And we have the list of tentative builds, and then so we have a few in the pipeline that we think will hit in 2020, and then we we accounted for 4 potential other non-standby residential builds. So among those are, we have a list of a handful: Garrison, Bruce, Eckert, Kopp, and then 4 kind of miscellaneous builds that we're planning on. So.
Okay.
Yeah, the impact fee is, to clarify the second half, all we have to, not all we have to do, but what has to happen is that we, get the pipe in the ground at the developer's expense, sterilize the line, charge it, take samples and have the samples pass state tests, and then that line is certified. At that point, it belongs to the service district. Then at that point, the developer decides where they want to tie into it and connect into it. And then we charge for all the work we do to do that as well. So I talked to the engineer a couple of days ago, and he said that he had been given the go-ahead to engineer a pipeline off the end of Paradise. I'm not sure the route. There's some state land, BLM land, and we own some land, however they elect to go. But once they get through ours, then they go into John Weaver's property. He has a well that does 2 gallons a minute. He's, I'm sure, would be interested in being hooked up. Corey Googler, who owns the next land, has asked me several times how he could get hooked up. The one after that is the old Tex Thompson property. He died a couple of years ago, but his family has asked about water several times. The next one would be Eckert, so we're picking up 3 to 4 before we ever get to the guy's property that's putting in the pipeline. Then after that, it's in the Coyote Road right of way, and anybody, be it Heber Allred, who has asked about a pipeline in the past, he's not very far up the road. And so we could pick up anywhere from 2 to 3 to 10 hookups, and nobody knows. It's like, but we do have sufficient ones that have indicated that they want to hook up to make the numbers match, and the rest of this is just where it falls. Did anybody else have any questions on any of this? Ours is much simpler than the town's, but still has some.
Where's the water sales, the water share sales come in and revenue?
So that is under other operating income.
Okay. Oh, there it is. Okay, sorry. And then do we have to, I don't know how this works, Harold. Do we have to buy a share when they buy a share?
When we originally purchased the Apple Valley Water Company and the Canaan Water Company, basically we purchased the infrastructure or piping and the water and the wells. Now the company still existed. The Apple Valley Water Company still may exist even to this day, probably does. The Canaan Water Company exists, but they have a few water shares, but they have nothing to do with us. We bought the pipe and the water, and that was it. And so we do have water that we can sell. If somebody comes in and wants to build a house, we charge them $4,000 per acre foot. If they bring their own water, then we just put it in the bank and keep it for them.
Okay, I was just looking for an offsetting expense and I didn't see it, so I didn't know how that worked.
I think what she's asking is when someone buys a water share, and we charge them $4,000, does that increase our shares in the bank or for the water district, that one extra share?
The number of shares stays constant. It's just where do they go? Are they laying idle in the bank? Or are they being utilized as somebody's house? So only a set number of water shares, whether they're in the bank or scattered throughout the town. Say there's 1,000 water shares, 500 could be in the bank, 500 could be servicing houses. Somebody builds another house, now we have 501 servicing houses, and we have 499 in the bank. We have the same total number, it's just where they're at.
But do we own those shares, or or are they like Jerry Eve shares that we're selling? That's what I'm getting at, I guess.
We own some. We prioritize the sale of those. Access funding is one who was asked to be on top of the list, part of the agreement. In short, people that bring water in to be protected.
Right.
And so they put it in the bank so the state won't confiscate it.
Right.
And so there is no real priority list other than the one agreement that I'm aware of with access funding. That was part of the agreement when they put in 500 acre feet at one time.
I guess what she was asking, from what I gathered, was where's the corresponding expense then? So if we're gonna charge, the Pruitts for a water share, for example, or whoever, then the Cobbs are a good example. They're gonna charge them for a water share. Where's that offsetting $4,000 expense to access that now makes that water share ours instead of theirs?
Yeah. What happens, you would bring a water share in, we would put it in the bank and put your house as a point of diversion for that acre foot. In other words, you bring it to us, we don't care where you bought it or what you paid for it. You bring it to us, we put it in the bank and provide service for that one share. So you have bought that elsewhere. But say you couldn't buy it someplace else and you bought it out of the inventory, say Charlie Brown brought in 10 acre feet of water to protect it, we sold you one of his, we would give the $4,000 to him. We're simply brokering this water. We don't hold an inventory other than about 600 acre feet, which is on the bottom of the inventory. The feeling being that we could sell it now and make some money, but I'm confident that in 10 years from now, $4,000 will be a steal for water. So we're holding the service district's water, which we could sell, in inventory, and we're selling out the water that people bring in and want us to sell for them.
So in essence, when cops buy a water share, you're basically buying it from Access because they're on the top of the list. Is that correct?
And then they would get the money.
And then they would get the money.
Right.
Okay, so, but there's no offsetting expense for the income.
I don't know, we didn't pay Access anything to put the water in there. They just put it in to protect it.
No, I understand that, but
If we're cashing a check,
if we're cashing the
Where do
$4,000
we
check,
give Access?
Access should
That
get.
circulates back to Access, we're selling their
Right.
water.
So I think I may have misunderstood the whole funding cycle for water shares. That this may be on me, the misunderstanding, and it sounds like we,
You have an offsetting expense.
yeah, so it sounds like I need to understand the process a little bit more.
We may both.
in other words, in our budget, I don't think we have that offsetting expense, is what we're trying to get at.
So I tried to call Rod a couple times this week, but I think the next step is for me to connect with Rod to understand the purchasing and acquisition process, and then get that correctly reflected in the budget.
Well, just to fill you in on how I came by the understanding I have and see how it fits. People would bring in water, say some of the ranchers from around here that the state was wanting to confiscate or have a beneficial use. They'd bring in and say, I have 10 acre feet, you're $4,000 an acre feet, I'd sell it to you for $40,000. We'd say, we're not gonna buy your water, but we'll put it in the bank and protect it for you, and it'll be in your name. Somebody who wants to build a house will come in and say, I need some water for my house, so we'll sell them one of those water rights, 1 acre foot of water. So we take that water right number, assign it to that new house, take the money that they pay for that and give it to the rancher that brought the money in.
Yeah, so I don't have the outflow of cash on that side of the transaction
Right.
in the budget.
Now, the water shares are identified by number, and they should be going out. The ones that are going out, and I've talked to Rod about it, and I'm sure there are water shares that Access has brought in, or other individuals, and our water is not being sold at this point. It could be, but again, it's kind of a savings account, and so that's kind of the way we approached it. So we may need to jockey this between now and the next meeting.
So my recommendation would be that we adopt this as is, as a tentative budget, with that as a big asterisk, something that needs to be resolved. And then I meet with Rod to get clarification on how the flow of money goes through that.
Yeah, and I might be out on the limb too, so, but that was my understanding of it.
Okay.
And Rod will be back in town Monday, but, the bank, the big idea of the bank was that it was to protect water and to have a place where people could come and buy water at a reasonable rate and not be held up by somebody that says, oh, you're building a house and I've got one water share, looking at what we're gonna have to do here. So we put a benchmark price on it and said, you know, people that need it can buy it at this price, and so we just leveled the market.
Is that water share ID number, whatever, connected somehow to your paperwork when you buy the share?
It is, yes. It's identified as they call it it'd just be identified with your house, and it's part of the building permit process and so on.
Chairman, the only other thing that I see on the budget that hasn't been addressed is the interlocal agreements that we should have with the town, that the mayor and the chairman should work out on things. Maybe, is this coming up for a next meeting or something?
We've discussed that briefly, maybe the mayor.
And I don't know if we want to do it, I mean, it would be something to work on, you know, I mean, at least, I mean, we're using Michelle, aren't we?
Well, the way it's worked so far is that the town has paid Ben and Michelle, and whatever work they've done for the service district has been absorbed, if you will, by the town. In the past, we've had interlocal agreement, but
well, that's where our charter
we don't have
says
one
that.
now.
Well, we had worried about it because we're tracking what your payment schedule is and what your cash flow is, and we can see that there's not, I mean, we're just squeaking by to make the payments. And had we been charging all this time, you wouldn't be making the payments without us throwing in some money. So our way of trying to help right the ship. so
Yeah,
to
and I
speak.
understand that, but the district can and should pay, I mean, and that needs to be worked out. What are we paying and what should we be paying?
You're
Even
not-
if it's a reduced amount from what's been paid
Right,
in
or
the
if that's
past.
something we're gonna pay in the future, we ought to know what do we owe the town? And, you know,
Yeah, we
and
just have to-
that should be,
We just
according to
have
our
to
charter,
worry
should
about
be
it.
formalized by, from what I read, by the chairman and the mayor sits down and tries to get it worked
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, we've sat down and we just said, we're not gonna charge anything. And the reason we're doing that is because if we were doing that and we were actually transferring money from your account to our account, that was put